I finally finished Squid Game Season 3. I've been waiting for this one for ages, watching the build-up, reading reactions, and honestly getting so invested. Episodes 5 and 6, the finale, they landed for me in a big way. First, a quick shout out to the design of the games. Fiendish and brilliantly thought out, the writers kept inventing new, cruel ways and somehow made each game feel fresh. Season 2 and 3 really stepped up the creativity. I loved the spectacle and the tension. For me, the season has always been about the characters and the acting. Gi-hun, played by Jung-jae, is the heart of the whole saga. Watching his arc across 3 seasons, starting from the desperate but hopeful guy in Season 1 to the damaged, broken man in Season 2, and then ending on Season 3 to somebody who finally makes the most expensive choice imaginable. Jung-jae sells every step of the journey. You can read the history and trauma in his face. You can see every tiny thought flicker across the eyes in those final scenes. I have to say, to be honest, when and the mother, Jung-jae, die in the show, I was emotionally wiped out. Those losses hit hard and I needed a little break. See, I really get invested in the show, maybe a bit too much. I put the show on a pause and gave myself a little bit of time to breathe. It's not me being dramatic, it was a lot. Their deaths were written and performed in ways that felt intimate and painful, and I needed to sit with it. I made a couple of videos on it, so I think you can see that I was emotionally invested in those characters. Obviously, I wanted to finish the show, so I came back for the final 2 episodes. I watched them in one go, and they did not disappoint. Final game, the last 2 episodes of the show. The idea of the last game, I think, of course, has had some criticism, and I'm sure people could critique it in terms of its realism. However, for me, I feel like it's okay. It's even okay in some instances to suspend some realism and simply go with the flow and enjoy the creativity of the show and the choices all the characters have to make. I think that the ending is a bit overly created and contrived. We could see what was coming, it was a little bit predictable, but the entire show has built up over 3 seasons to ask one question to the audience, which inspired me to make this video. And the question is, which character are you? Are you Seong Gi-hun or are you Lee Myung-gi? That's the moral mirror that the show holds up to the audience. So the final game turns the players into decision makers. Each round, the group can only pick one person to push off the tower. It becomes almost like a debate or a vote. Who do we sacrifice? Who do we push? And who is willing to do the pushing? Eventually, the situation narrows down to Seong Gi-hun, Lee Myung-gi, and the baby, player 222. And this is where everything the show has been building towards becomes personal and immediate. Myung-gi is the baby's father. He's very flawed, selfish at times, but with a conscience. Seong Gi-hun is the good guy who promised the dead mother he would protect the baby with his life. Now the choice is down to whether someone will die to save the child. This is the moment that the show forces a question upon the audience. You ask yourself, what would you do in this situation? And I don't mean you physically ask yourself. At the end of episode 5, when the last guy falls off the tower, we're left with Seong Gi-hun, Lee Myung-gi, and the baby. There is this moment that happens when they all look at each other. And this is the moment where your mind would have thought about what happens now. Even for a split second, it would have crossed your mind. Do I throw the baby off? Or you would have thought, now I have to die. Do you imagine killing the baby to save yourself? Or do you instantly think that you'd take your own life to save the child? That split second thought, and the shame or relief you might have felt afterwards, is exactly the point. Squid Game isn't content with characters making choices. It wants viewers to confront their own impulses. And admit it, if you're honest. Some part of your brain might have briefly considered the selfish option, or maybe you immediately felt, I'd die for the baby. Both reactions reveal something about you, and the show is clever enough to make those reactions surface. Not to sound self-righteous, but I did have this panic. I could feel Gi-hun falling, as if that's how I'm gonna die now, and I'm thinking of the fall I would have to make, and that crossed my mind. So my mind went somewhere to protect the baby. And it felt strange, but my mind went there briefly. Now, you don't have to say what you thought, but it's interesting to think about what crossed your mind when that situation happened. Seong Gi-hun sacrifices himself. He stands up, looks straight at us, at the camera, gives a speech about us being human, not horses, and then falls. It's devastating, and it's exactly the kind of human moment Squid Game has been building towards. Ugly choices, raw feelings, and a final statement about what matters. The ending is a little bit on the nose at times. It's dramatic, maybe even orchestrated to land emotionally, and some beats are predictable. You could argue the finale was written with impact in mind more than realism. But you know what? That's fine with me. I'm okay suspending a bit of realism when the show earns it through the acting, the direction, and the emotional stakes. Jung-jae's performance carries a huge part of that weight. Every tiny expression, every hesitation, every cracked tone sells the sacrifice. And the other actors in those final scenes, not forgetting Myung-gi, played by Yim Si-wan, one of my favorites. Check out one of my videos on him, who becomes this morally messy figure. He's not good, he's definitely not a good guy, but he's not fully a bad guy either. He's the most real player, in my opinion, in the entire show. He makes it all the way to the end because of the fact that he's the most realist player. He's not self-righteous, he plays dirty, he does bad things, but he's not all bad. He's kind of the most human of all the players. They all make these choices feel plausible and gutting. What I loved most was how the finale stretched the last game over 2 episodes. They could have jammed it all into one final episode and called it a day, but spreading it out let the tension breathe. It lets us sit with the grief, the anger, and hope. It's the final, so there's no cliffhanger. We don't really want another season. That's one way to ruin the show. The longer story here is why Squid Game has been so massive. It's not only the shock value or the inventive games, it's the way the show builds real, flawed characters and puts them into situations that force brutal questions. Who do we become when survival is on the line? And what are we willing to sacrifice? That's the engine that makes the show more than just a spectacle. So again, which character are you? Gi-hun, who keeps his promise even at the highest cost, or Myung-gi, who wrestles with selfishness and conscience? For me, I love the ending. Despite a few predictabilities and moments that feel slightly constructed for emotional effect, the finale hits because the performances earned it. The writing asked the right questions and the actors carried them through. I walked away exhausted, emotional, and oddly grateful. Squid Game reminded me that the best TV makes you ask uncomfortable questions about yourself, and that's exactly what it did. I loved every second of it. If you watched, were you Team Gi-hun or Team Myung-gi? And did you, even for a fraction of a second, imagine making the other choice?
게임이 종료되었습니다.